Let's see if the stream catches. Ah, I think we're streaming. I'll tell the world about it. Streaming game dev. Haven't used my voice in the past 3 days, so it's gonna be mumbly. That's not the right link. That's the right link. All right, so pardon me, as my writing said, I haven't had to talk to anybody recently, so don't know how well my voice is going to hold up or even be decipherable, but we're going to try and get through it here. So we were working on tentacles, and we're going to keep working on tentacles. And I know that everybody is looking forward to seeing our glorious tentacle stuff. So we got a couple of issues that we need to work through. One of those issues is that this tentacle is still too broad. Another one is that the mesh structure is not good enough. So we're going to go back to the drawing board, which isn't far away. We specifically made it so we could iterate very quickly. First, I'm going to rub my glasses a lot because the sun is coming through the windows and it is catching on every single tiny little particle of dust on my lenses. All right, so just pop over here into Blender. So this is what it looks like. Here is our base mesh over here. What we're going to do is we're going to modify the base mesh. Unfortunately for us, that means this mesh has to actually be deleted because the modifications are lossy. So this is what this looks like. And basically our problem here is that this element, this suckery bit, is not properly integrated into the core structure that we need. So we're going to go ahead and just delete these and integrate it and then do some, flipping and stuff and clean it all up and it should be good to go. So to get the right density, we're going to need to add some cuts in here like that and like that because we are doing animations that require the surface to ripple. So we want the surface to be dense in the same places like this. That's good. So after that, we're just going to start to merge these points into places that make sense for us. And you can see that we can get very, very close. So if we merge at last here, and then we just continue to merge at last. No, don't. There it is. Ooh, what? Why does that seem so much denser in this camera? I guess it's just the camera view. So we're just going to keep merging here. No, that one, yeah, that's right. Come on. And then we'll just go through it all. And though this is not exciting, there are other ways to do it. We could do a cut and then like an edge blend, bridge edge loops. But the problem with that is that we're not actually looking at an edge loop here. We're looking at manual cuts that may need to have additional elements pushed into them. So we're not going to be able to just do a bridged edge loop. Although we could give it a shot now that I'm thinking about it. We might as well try it. We're going to go ahead and delete this guy. Shabow. And then we'll go ahead and just delete this guy. Faces. And then if we come up with a shape that more or less matches that underlying structure, we shouldn't have a problem using a bridge loop. People are talking about programming in my my Twitter chat, which is always good. Except when they say things I don't agree with, obviously. Then they're wrong and bad. I should probably, however, pull up the Twitch stream just in case somebody stops in. I don't expect anybody, but it's best to be, active and aware. So to cut this, we're just going to go ahead and choose a nice big area and make sure that we get enough that it goes out past the... Oh, that didn't work. What the hell? That was weird. Enough that it goes out past the edges like this, because we're going to be bridging that edge loop, at least in theory. And of course, we may end up having to undo all of this. There's no guarantee we won't. And over here, we'll just have to put in another cut. Probably could do this with mirroring a little bit faster, but that's okay. We're not in a terrible hurry. There we go. Oh, I missed that one. My bad. Pressed the wrong button. Come on, press the right button for once in your life. There we are. I am pretty sleepy. All right, so that is more or less how it looks. You can see that we don't have an exact, like, on the surface situation here. Over here, for example, the loops fall underneath rather dramatically. We've got a couple of options to that, but since we're going with the loops aren't particularly good in this case. So what would really make sense for us is to just go with non-loops in both situations. There's no reason for us to keep all of this density when we don't need it, unless we're trying to prove something, and we're not. There we go. So we'll just delete there, and then we'll delete there, and that should be good. And then we'll just nudge these so that they are loops again, and pull them out until they're outside of our face, outside of our skin. Now, I think there are other ways to do this, but I don't happen to know them. So we're going to do it this way. Let's use a soft. There we are. Oops. Let's switch it over to connected only. There we are. Something like that, yeah. Got some laggards. Just pull them forward. I can't tell if that's the same one or not. I think it is. Yeah, it's definitely the same one. Good. So then what we should be able to do is loop up all of this as well. And if we just select it, you can see that's a loop, and then this is a loop. And we should be able to bridge edge loops. Chow. And you can see what we've got is a little bit gross. It's a little bit grumpy, but that's not a huge deal. We're going to unhide some stuff, and then we're going to just go in with a sculpt brush and smooth out a little bit. Where is our smooth? There it is. Because this is supposed to feel quite organic. This is supposed to feel like, you know, a squid. So we don't want any real signs that we have, you know, a mesh situation. It's supposed to feel like it's an organic surface like that. So, ooh, see, we over smoothed it. That's kind of what I don't want to do. We'll need to smooth it a little bit, but then we'll go back in and blob it up. No, that's not the blob that I want. What is that? Inflate, blob it up. There we are. So once we've done that, what we can do is unwrap this one element. If we take a look in this view, you can see how this element has a different texture. That's on purpose. We're going to go ahead and just select it and unwrap it alone so that it will have its own setup. And we'll just do, can we just do an unwrap? Yeah, we can just do an unwrap. See, nice and clean. It's its own material, so we don't have to worry about it sharing UV surfaces. But we can't unwrap the rest yet because we're going to actually do some pretty complicated stuff with it. And so, yeah. what we're going to do is we're going to grab the whole thing and duplicate it. And then we're going to rotate it around the 3D cursor. No, we're not at 0, 0. Hold on. Beep. We're in sculpt mode. I don't want to be in sculpt mode. There we are. Rotate it around the 3D cursor. Come on. There we are. And then we can move it up 0.5. Oh, just move it up 1. There we are. And then we can duplicate it and move it up 2. There we are. And then we can clean up everything with a by distance removal. And then we can start to cleave. So we want this to be clean on this top line here. And you can see it's not actually clean on the top line. We've got a situation where we are deviating slightly due to our brush. It's not a big deal though. We just have to keep it in mind as we clean it up. That's more or less it. And now we're going to move our center element. What's it called? There it is. Going to move this up to 1, up to 2. And then we're going to just take this out and scale Z. Select it first. Why did that go? I don't want that. There we are. And then all we have to do is scale Z. Oh, that's too many. Look at that. We've got some extras in there. Need to be more careful. Also, we don't need that point. Unfortunately for us, oh, okay, it worked. I've got this so scaled up that it's hard to see there. So if we then, the hell? Why is there a point there that I can't select? Oh, for fuck's sake. Oh, look, there's an extra. Stop selecting shit that I don't want you to select. There we are. And then we'll select all this. And then we'll just do scale Z0. Nope, too much. Please select what I want you to select only. Thank you. And then we're going to just repeat the process down at the bottom. That should be fine. We've got some hangers on that we do not need. Deleted. And then we're going to just select all this stuff. There we go. And that should make it nice and clean. We're just going to, once again, remove by distance. And it didn't look like that caught anything. So we have a little bit of overlap in this. And that's going to not necessarily cause issues. It should be okay. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's going to be okay. You can see how we've got some overlapping inside there where the cut and pastes are going over each other. In particular, we've restored the interior, which shouldn't have to exist because it is... oh, well, you can actually see it. You can see how they overlap back here. These bands of color. That's where the Z fighting is happening. In theory, remove by distance should help, but it doesn't seem to be. If we just increase the distance for the removal... I don't want to overdo it, but let's try it. Yeah. So now what we need to do is probably to clean out the interiors again, because these interiors are no good. They are not supposed to be here, and they're going to end up popping through. The Relin and Obs both popped in, and Ob says, "Oh, it's that kind of game." Yeah, well, it's a kind of game that happens underwater, and there are squids in it, or some kind of beast. So what we're doing right now is we're trying to clean up. I'm just seeing, why are these different color? Normally when it's different color, that's a sign that there's Z fighting, but I don't see any signs of Z fighting here other than the color change. It looks like there's only one face here, and it looks like there's only one face here. It does look like there are some interior faces. That's what's going on. We got some double faces in this region. That's what it is. So what we can do is we can try and find those double faces. There they are. And delete them. No, don't dissolve anything. Go back. So we're cleaning up after doing a lot of very silly stuff. So it's a little bit of work. But you can see all of these faces here need to go. So we're going to try and get rid of them. They're on the inside of the arm where nobody will ever be able to see them. We're going to go ahead and just take it slow for starters. We don't need to delete all of them necessarily, but these faces will end up popping through when we do vertex animations. So we don't want that to happen. Fortunately, they're pretty easy to spot because they're the wrong color due to the additive color layers that we've got out of Blender. Oh, look, we missed one. We accidentally punched a hole. That's no big deal. That is the shortest path you could find. Okay. So we're going to go back in and fix the holes later. For now, however, we're going to want to just delete all of these bright faces. Really? Okay, let's try that without selecting the face in the background. There we are. There we go. I actually can't tell which of those is... Okay, yeah. I should probably change the settings so I can read it a little bit better, but... So after we're done with this, what we're going to do is we're probably going to end up cutting along the middle and flipping it rather than attempting to do it again. Because it should be mirrored up down as well. And it's not exactly, but it should be close enough that it won't give us any trouble. A little bit hard to see which faces are which in this mess, but it's okay. We're getting there pretty quick. Just doing all the grunt work we need to do. Got a couple of punched holes we're going to have to fix. No biggie. That's not a hole. That is a bad topo overlap. We're going to make it into a hole. All right, so we've got a couple of holes and just one or two more faces. I don't think those are overlaps. They're not. We got some places where the mesh is a little bit spotty. That's fine. So let's go ahead and seal up these cracks. There we are. There we are. So now the only problem we've got is that the center line on this core shape is really distorted because we sculpted, and that means that it's ended up being nowhere near flat. So if we wanted to reflatten it, we're going to have to select it and reflatten it, but there are some issues with that. One of the issues being that we don't actually know which of the structures along the center line is the one that was originally on the center line. I think it was that. Close enough. Even if it's wrong, it's fine. So now that we've flattened that, we should be able to delete all of the stuff above it. And then do a mirror. Oh wait, we've already got a mirror? We've already got a mirror. No, that's an array. Sorry, then do a mirror. So you can see that the mirror mirrors it on the wrong axis. That's not necessarily going to be any problem, but it does mean that we've got this little error right here where it doesn't quite work. So to fix that, we're simply going to drag those down until they make a clicking sound. There we are. Unfortunately, the mirroring is happening after. We need to have it happen before. There we go. So now we've got this set up, and that is more or less what we want. It's just way too big. So what we're going to have to do is really scale it down and have some fun with it. So let's move it off to the side. And there's the original. You can see the original being the last version from yesterday. So we're going to want to duplicate this. Why can't I duplicate it? There we are. Do we have 18 copies? No. We can simply shrink this bottom mesh rather considerably, but we're going to want to shrink it towards the 3D cursor. There we go. And then we can simply make the array modifier really, really long. But we're going to want to unwrap all the stuff that we didn't get before. Shpow, no problem. And then we will apply it. Here's the array modifier. We're going to want it to be at least 20 meters long. So there we go. And we're going to go ahead and hit apply there. Name it tentacle. And that's going to be the basis for our tentacle. Now the other thing we have to do is put in reshaping this so that it narrows towards the tip, and put in an armature for it. So there are a few pieces to this that don't work, and that would be this very, very tip. Oh, and we actually have an error in the core pieces. That it's split right there. So we have to start over. Here we are. The split is happening right here, and we just missed it, so not that big a deal. We'll just... Why are you not... There we are. Seal that split up. Just a quick check. I don't see any other problems. So this time we're going to go ahead and do the exact same thing that we did. We just duplicate this and then move it over. And then shrink it. And then, ooh, we forgot to unwrap it. God dang it. I need to unwrap it more intelligently. There we go. And now that we've done that, we can simply apply the mirror modifier and really amp up the count. It's a little bit too much. There we are. Apply that. So now that we don't have any random holes in it that I can see, I don't see any. We do have to clean up this edge here. This is the tip, and the problem is that the tip doesn't have this kind of half tentacle on it. So in order for us to clean that up, I think what we're going to have to do is get the friggin' camera to behave for 10 seconds. We're going to want to duplicate this and then use an active element flip. And then we'll just line it up-ish. And then we will try to get this to... Well, I guess we don't need that part. We'll just delete it. It's going to be small, so it doesn't matter if there's like something a little iffy about it. I just need it to be a tip. So we're going to just... Oh. Damn it. Why don't I go ahead and just shrink it? That'll do. And then we'll extrude, and then the extrusion will just... Boop. There we go. So now the only other thing we have to do is actually scale it. And I don't really know the best way to do this, but the last time I did it with a linear fall off. And I just made the, and I just made the scale of the scaling very big, and that worked fine. The only problem with this is that it does result in some stretched tentacles, but I think that's probably fine. So now we need to bring back that armature. This is the armature we were using. It's not very well suited for what we need, so we're going to delete it. I'm going to add in a new armature. There we go. So with this armature, we're going to have it be weighted a little bit differently. The previous armature was evenly weighted. Evenly weighted armatures don't make any sense for this, so we're not going to use them. Oh, for fuck's sake. So instead what we're going to do is use an unevenly weighted one, which, I mean, sounds pretty obvious now that you're talking about it, right? And then that's just basically going to be this. We may adjust it a little bit more, but that's the basic idea. So if we then grab this and do this, we should be able to do them with automatic weighting. It's going to end up being a little bit too aggressive. It's going to be a little bit too bendy, but that's fine. We can always soften the mapping later. So we'll just save that, go back over into Unity here. Probably going to have to bring the octopus back in from scratch, because I think that the... Oh, I guess the armature gave it its all. The bending, it tried to keep the bending as it was. It's a little bit damaged, but it's not too shabby. So we're going to just go ahead and take a look at that, see how that looks in person. One of the key things is that the width of the tentacle has to be about the width of our, I don't know, our waist. Because when it wraps around us, we need to be able to see the character. So all of the material elements that we were using are now wrong. I don't know whether that's because we radically changed the UV mapping, but it may have gotten rid of the materials. I don't see any sign of any of our material goodness happening here. So let's go ahead and turn the directional light on so we can see a little bit. And if we take a look, it's in a book, The Reading Rainbow. Why is this called Tentacle Piece 01? Oh, God damn it. Is that the reason it didn't work? Apparently I renamed the wrong thing. So that would be why it wasn't working, because it imported it as a new object, and it's obviously not supposed to be. Unfortunately, we've permanently damaged... There, this is it. Where is it? Yeah, so... Let's get this set up again. Gotta rename stuff more carefully. Oh, it actually remembered the material this time. Might as well take a look at it here in play mode, or in edit mode. You can see how we've got these pulsating pieces. That's survived pretty well. It looks like everything survived pretty much intact, which is a surprise. The thing we're trying to do is make sure that the pulsating along these tentacle parts doesn't interrupt the disc. There's two ways to do that. One is we could have the disc pulsate, and another is we could paint the tips and then have it do the pulsating based on the paint job, which is what we're going to do. So that means we have to go back to scratch. Aren't you just having the most fun continuing to go back to scratch every single time? That's fine. The whole point here is that the going back to scratch is super, super cheap. So we have this set up, and we're just going to paint the disc and the ring around the disc a specific color. If we go into paint mode, boom, we're going to switch over into this so that we can see how we paint it. and then we're going to choose a color. Now the default is white, so we're going to have to pick a color where the lack of that color is the color we'll be going off of. So we'll go ahead with red. We'll just, a lack of red is what we're looking for here. And I believe I should be able to change the color by clicking on it. There's a way to let me specify it. There it is. So basically red. There we are. That's exactly opposite red, of course it is. So if we just paint this teal color here, yeah, good. It's going to work. There we go. And then paint it here as well. And then what we're going to want to do is lower the strength and kind of paint around this area so that we don't get a sudden fall off. We want a nice soft fall off. We've got some spare friggin' mess ups. Presumably it's, I thought I had it set to only paint the front, but apparently not. It has decided it's going to paint the back as well. So apparently if front faces only doesn't work. Yeah, screw it. Oh, you know what it is? It was cutting through the mirroring. The material has, the mesh has a mirror on it, and the mirror is opaque to us in draw mode, but the actual brush doesn't see it. So when we click down here, it actually says, oh, you mean to paint the back side, even though I have front faces only turned on. So I'm not sure why it would ever think that. Well, whatever. Get back to white and just get rid of it. Fuck. Get back to white. Why is this so soft? Okay, so when you hit Control Z, it undoes the last 85 things that you did, which is not how I want Blender to behave, but I guess you get what you pay for sometimes. So we'll just clean this up. All right, so that's more or less right. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now that we've got that painted, what we can do is we can, instead of using the line we were using before, we can switch it up. We're going to use the, first off, we're going to turn off the mirror and the array. And we are going to use a different color. How about missing green? That'll be fine. So pull this up, bring the green down. And that's going to be the part of the mesh that's going to have the darker skin tone. That's right, I can't do that easily, so we're going to just bear with it. And then just as before, we are going to bring the brush strength down and create a nice soft edge for ourselves. That's good enough. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn all this shit back on and come out of Vertex Paint mode, and then duplicate it, move it to the center, shrink it way down, apply the scale, and then we are going to lengthen it are, a little bit longer. And then we're going to come up to the top here and do that same thing we did before. Oh, we have to apply everything. Hold on. So all we need to do is shrink this down, but we need to have it be like this. And then we're going to just extrude and then merge a center. And then we're going to do the same thing, but have it scaled way, way up. Was that too much? I can't tell because I can't see it. I guess it's fine. One of the other things we can do is we can actually stretch this on the XZ axis rather considerably. But if we do that, then I'll have to think about it. There are other ways to build this which may be better. All right, we'll save that. Come back over here into Unity. Oh, I forgot to rename it. Oh, that can't be right. Why is that named Tentacle? I didn't name it that, did I? There's fucking two of them. Okay. So this must be the old one without the vertex colors, and this must be the new one. Oh, come on. So we'll re-import it. There it is. It's quite tall. You can see that it's not using the materials we want it to use because, yeah, Blender and Unity don't get along terribly well. So we'll come up to the materials. And I think I put it under fauna. Yeah, there's the octopus, so I'll just drop that on. And you can see that the default octopus shader is not quite what we want it to be because all of the values are different now. But we'll just go ahead and edit some of those so that it'll work. The first thing we're going to want to do is open it in shader. So there are a couple of things that we're going to need to update. We need to get the vertex color for a lot of these details. Up here, you can see we lerp based on based on the dorsalness. So what we're going to do is we're going to find the dorsalness. There it is. We're going to replace that with G. And that should be dorsal. Now we should be able to see a skin tone change along the spine. I can't see shit here. It looks like it's backwards, so we're going to invert it. There we go. That's more or less right. And then what we need to do is set it up so that the explosive swelling you're seeing only happens on red elements. Here it is. So displacement depth is going to be multiplied by the both of these need to be multiplied, so we're going to just put it over here somewhere. Vertex color. Red. Curse you. That's a lerp. So, I mean, we might get some... Well, let's see how it looks with the vertex normals changing. All right, so you can see how they're no longer glitching forward. Now, obviously, the volume is much too high. We still actually have a little bit of separation because I wasn't absolute, but that should be okay. This is such an exaggerated version of what we're supposed to be looking at that it's fine. Let's go ahead and change this directional light so that I can friggin' see something at some point here. Why are you selecting random shit when it's clear what I want is that? Thank you. Oh, for fuck's sake. So we're going to turn off the top because it is being annoying. All right, so here you can see what we're doing. And you can see that we definitely have the shapes, but they're moving in a way that is really weird looking. So we're going to need to fix that. And that's basically a matter of the shader having the wrong values here. 0.3 is obviously much too high of a displacement depth, which is why it is the max. But also these are not feeling right. Because our tentacle is so much thinner, I think we need to make sure that it is much denser. So 0.1 is too much. Just go to 0.2, or do I need to be 0.05, 0.05? I guess 0.2 is roughly right. We're getting a lot of chop. I see that chop. Not sure why. We shouldn't really be seeing that much chop. All right, so the problem here is simply that it's too much density. Well, in that case, try the tessellation at 2. We're still getting some chop. All right, let's see how this looks in the game world. Once again, we're going to have to turn on the surface objects because otherwise we're going to have some problems. We'll just turn this directional light back off. We can tweak this as much as we want later. There's no big deal about it. We're probably going to have to remake it a few times, but when remaking it is like 20 minutes, who cares? It should be around here. No, there it is. I got the sun in my face, so it's a little bit challenging to actually see the screen. Yeah, so what you see here is the tentacle bits are definitely visible. I mean, the veiny bits, you know, that I want. They're definitely visible, but I don't know that they are doing their job. Let's just increase the speed slightly for now. So the reason that these exist is to give it a living feeling. And I just get the feeling like maybe the texture is wrong for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to revamp the texture and try again. So I'm going to give you Phoenix Wright for a second while I open up the art program and get it set up. So basically I just think that we are getting too much in the way of thin veins, and the result is not great. Boy, you know what I miss? I miss... Verlin says doing it vertex-based is wrong. Some kind of dynamic normal map would probably look better. It is a dynamic normal map. What are we talking about? The vertex colors are just there to determine what kind of splatting we get in terms of what kind of base colors and how much the offset works. But as you can see, I'm using, as you can see, you can't see because I turned you off for a second. Give me a second to open this up and then I'll show you. Unfortunately, it's become impossible to just double click to open something up, which is not really great. So bring you back here from, hold on, this is going to be right, at veins B. And then just, where are you? There you are. Yeah, so I am using displacement maps. It's not by, they are displacing the verts. I can't do anything about that. I can't displace non-verts in this particular shader mode. But that's why I'm using a tessellation factor to try and pump up the amount of topological density I'm getting. Anyway, this is the vein map that we were using. It's pretty shitty, so we're going to replace it. Let me pull out, let me make a loud squeaking noise. Pull out my art supplies. As to whether or not I should be using a dynamic normal map, this has a normal map built into it. So the idea is that I make this and I also make a normal map that mirrors it, and that should be good enough. That's what everybody on the internet suggested, and I guess that's probably for good reason. So we'll do it that way. What we're going to do is just create much larger veins this time. Let's use something softer. Okay, let's go ahead and add in just a little bit of hardness. That might be too hard. So there's veins B. Go back over into Unity, find it, duplicate it. Veins BN. Fuck you. And we'll go ahead and name that as a normal map. Give it a nice soft smooth factor and apply it. And now let's replace the material we were using. Hold on, I gotta close the window blinds. I can't see a thing. So you can see that's the old veins we've got cycling down it. And if we switch over to the new veins, why won't it click anything? What the fuck is going on? Okay, I froze Unity. Sorry, Unity, I didn't mean to try and use you. That was dumb. Wow, I'm super glad that I'm going to use Unreal from now on, because this is just the worst. Are you done yet? What are you doing? Why are you broken? Okay, so apparently it backlogged every single thing I did and decided to execute it 15 minutes later. I don't know what it's thinking. Veins B and veins BN. And so if we look at this with the light on, yeah, so you can see that now we've got something that pulses down much more regularly. That's much closer to what I had in mind. But I think that we need to change the X stretch. That's better. bring it up even higher, maybe? Oh yeah, that's probably perfect. Let's see how that looks in person. I can't see it. Why can't I see it? Here's a pulse of it. Oh, that's super faint. Let's go ahead and radically pump up the normal map. So just come down here and tell us that the normal map is much, much lower. That's definitely more visible now. It's probably going to look really terrible in like sunlight, but we'll use a different material if you're going to see it in sunlight. One of the things I've noticed is that I can't see the marbling anymore. And that's because the marbling is based on a UV coordinate setup, and we've radically changed the UV map. So that's the next step. Let's bring back that marbling. Is this directional light just chronically pointed the wrong way? There we go. So if we were to select this and then find the marbling, here it is, cellular scale. So you can see we can increase the cellular scale dramatically like this. You can see that we've got this herringbone sort of setup. That's because we're not doing the same UV unwrapping that we did before. To be honest, I'm not against this herringbone look, so maybe I'll leave it like that. But I could fix it just by changing one of the values in the shader, so maybe we'll try that. I've got this shader still open. So if we come up here to the herringbone, here it is. You can see that what we're doing is we are adding a factor of z into x, and we probably should be adding it into y. So no big deal, just switch it around. And that's just because our unwrap is 90 degrees off of what it was before. Yeah, so you can see that now. Now the rear doesn't have the herringbone shape. It does do a little bit of skewing in the front though. We may not need any of the Z because now it's no longer, it used to be that the Z, hold on. Is it not based on, now I thought this was based on UV. It says that it's based on vertex position. Okay, apparently I wasn't basing anything on UV. I think I based it on UV and then stopped. Yeah, I don't see any sign of any UV mapping happening here. Oh well, we could in fact use UVs, like just plain old textures for the core shapes and roughness. We'll keep that in mind for later though. Right now what we need to do is think about how we're going to animate these suckers. So the problem is the suckers are a different material, but more than that, they need to be able to animate. They need to be able to squiggle in. And it looks like we do have to change the normal maps to be a little bit less severe. We'll do that later. So in order for them to squiggle in, what we actually need to do is have the entire green area, the entire non-red area of the map of the mesh be able to contract, but they're not contracting towards the center. They need to contract towards the center of the disk. And how do you contract towards the center of the disk? Well, it's not easy, because there is no easy way to tell what the center of the disk is. We could have them contract towards 0, 0, 0, in which case they would shrink this way, but this one would shrink down. It wouldn't really look very good. We could hold it on the z-axis, but then they would get thinner. We could use a blend shape, I suppose, but then we would have to be able to apply blend shapes to different portions of our mesh. Ooh, not really sure how to do this. For now, let's just create a sucker material. Why is it pink? Oh, I accidentally chose it as octopus, even though I very clearly didn't want it as octopus. Now I have to track down where the legacy shaders are and manually select. You know what, it's faster to just delete it and try again. There we go. So I'm thinking about how to get these to properly sucker. And I don't really know. I guess I could hard code them, but the problem is it tapers. So even if you're in object space, there is no constant value. If they were all if they were in object space and they were tapered in world space, they were somehow tapered via shader, then it would be fine, because I could say, well, then, you know, blue tentacles are always at negative 0.5 and red tentacles are always at positive 0.5 or whatever. But they're not. They're tapered, so the center line shifts as you move up. But we could consider, if we were to shade it, if we were to pass in a tentacle that wasn't shaded, or that wasn't tapered, we could consider tapering it using the shader. But I'm not sure how to do that, because it would end up skewing, because you can make it smaller, but you can't make it shorter. At least you shouldn't. So it would end up skewing the tentacles, the suckers. So that would mean that we would need to like have something which remained the same diameter all the way up, but every layer got shorter and shorter and shorter. So we'd like squash it down. And then in this mode here, we would shrink it on the other two axes. There's got to be a better way to do it. Hold on. Octopus tentacles. See if we can find some videos here. Videos. If your hands could smell, you'd be an octopus. Great. Let's mute you. Mute. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty gross. So the thing about them is they do, the suckers just go out. They don't ever twist or anything like that. I mean, actually, they don't they? They move. Like the whole thing is a separate. I mean, they're like fingers. I wonder whether or not we could have the suckers be algorithmically separate. We could have them just be placed on a squid mesh instead of. The problem is I need to make sure that line where they connect to the actual tentacle is perfect, and I don't know how to do that. Man, this is rough. Hmm. I could have a bone for every tentacle, um, every sucker, but that would be a lot of bones. That would be like literally hundreds of bones. So I don't think that's what we want. I mean, it is a boss character. This is something that is supposed to be dominant. And I suppose what we could do is we could just use bones for like the middle set because those are the ones that are going to matter. Um, it's also a very flat tentacle. It's like that's not really how they look. Um, well, I can't think of it. We'll do it later. We'll have to think about it some other time because clearly I do not know what I'm doing when it comes to trying to animate this squid thing. So I think it might be time for us to for us to make this thing instead. This is the energy gun that we're going to be using to charge our. That also needs to be replaced, but we're going to have to go ahead and make those. So we might as well make them since I don't know what I'm doing with the tentacle. So we'll just open that up, drone stuff. We'll close the tentacle for now. We'll come back to it. So here in the drones stuff department, we are going to need to, I'll just delete this guy. Boom, don't need him anymore. These two folks. And we're going to want to create a gun. So the gun is going to have to be in a couple of pieces. Basically, there has to be something that gets knocked over, but it has to be separate from the thing that has a power cable in it, because I don't want to recalculate the power cable when you write the device. So that means that basically it's going to have a power input that runs down through some kind of gimbal. And then it has a separate like dish element that you can move that takes power from the gimbal. And that should work. It's just a matter of trying to figure out how it actually looks. You know what? We should probably do some sketching. So we'll just go ahead and give you a Phoenix Wright for just a couple of seconds here. Okay. Yeah, it needs to be a different color. There we are. So let's use a pencil. Why not? So basically, if the cable comes down and plugs into something, then we're going to be looking at some kind of power mount, some kind of main element for taking the power in from topside and processing it. And we'll give that some details. I don't know what kind yet. And then we're going to have some kind of pointable dish. maybe something like that. I'm not sure. Wrong button. And if we add in some like greebling or something to make it look a little bit more interesting, we can add in some glowy bits and stuff. And we need some big old handles. It'll be snapped off. That's what it'll be. So basically, it'll have been controlled automatically. And you are going to have to control it manually now. So we're going to have these control arms, but they're going to have handles on them so that, you know, if manual control is needed, you can do it. And they will be snapped. And we'll have loose cables coming down into whatever housing it was going to use before. So just have some debris around it. Yeah, and we'll have it on both sides. It'll be snapped on both sides. How do I want it to look? I want it to be nice and smooth like this. Yeah, and the whole thing has to be on a rounded gimbal down here because it has to be, you know, 3 degrees of motion or whatever. So it has the ability to spin from down here, which means it makes sense for this to be very, very disc-like, just a tower, and we can have that mounted like this, right? So we can just have nested hugs. Nested hugs is what we're going for here. Yeah, so we'll draw that. We'll do that. And that'll be a skinned mesh that we'll be able to move around. But the only part that's going to move is the head. And then we'll have a pair of skeletal elements for the wires. All right, so let's get started. We'll use a cylinder for the base here. And just shrink that down. Maybe like that. And then up near the top, we're just going to put in a cut. Like, oop. That'll be our rotor on the top. Ob says normal tentacle. Yeah, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do the suckers. And I know that people are happy to send me links to tutorials, but I haven't seen any tutorials that do the suckers in any sort of way that I get along with. They need to be very active. I really want you to feel like you're in danger from this living creature. And I just don't know if there's any way to do that without putting bones on all of them. I could also do like a vertex chain. Like I could create like a vertex array, and I could have anything within a meter of one of the vertex points be pulled towards it. In which case, you just keep the suckers pulled towards those elements and you manually place them. I'm not sure. That's probably the only way to do it. But that means that we're going to have not a bone, but a free-floating object for every single sucker, which would be a real pain well, it's not a real pain, but it's a little bit annoying to handle. We'll have to think about it. Anyway, that's going to be this part. We're going to also need to have a box. And the idea here is that the box will be hugging this little column. So we'll just put in some cuts here. And we'll just slice it in half. Oh, I sliced the wrong half. That's fine. Looks kind of like a toilet. That's fine too. We're going to go ahead and rotate it. And what we're going to want to do is bring this under control. So David Gooder stopped in. Hello. So that's going to be the outer grip. We're going to want to go ahead and adjust this stand here so that it feels a little bit more natural. I guess the way to do that would be to select a bunch of these side elements. Come on. I can't keep blaming Blender from all of my misclicks. Clearly, I am just terrible at clicking shit. It happens. So if we do that, we can scale X, 0 it. Why is it scaling? Oh. And that'll give us like a flat platform, but it's clearly too big, so we're going to have to unselect some of these. There we are. And then that platform will be where we can stick this arm. And then we will simply shrink the upper platform. There we go. Mark it all as smooth, and then chop it up. There we go. And then this needs to come forward a little bit. And we're going to want to add in some decoration because it's a little bit not good enough. So now we're going to find out that all of this is inside out. Yeah, that part is. Flip it. And come on. And then what we're going to want to do is just adjust this so that it's a little bit better, like that maybe. And then we'll just grab these faces, do an insert, delete them, do a cut. So how in the world did that end up half backwards? Oh, for fuck's sake. There we are. I don't think we need these guys. Just delete them. So if we were to then do active element, we could grab these, Q, or rather scale X 0, and then we can just bridge edge loops. But the bridging of edge loops is not quite right because it's not good enough. So what we need to do is extrude, and then bridge those edge loops. Because that way we can select this, extrude it in. That's better. So then what we're going to want is to just shape this to be a little bit more interesting, and the best way to do that is to put in a cut, a crease. Might as well use this one. Well, I guess it's not too bad of a spot. So we're just going to pick some off-center elements across from each other and delete them. And then we're going to want to fill in this whole setup. Behold, let's go ahead and bevel. There we go. And of course, we're going to want to make sure that this really feels right. So we're going to do a little bit more beveling here. And we're going to want to bevel the entire edge. But maybe we should hold off on that because I don't really know 100% how the rest of it's going to look. Anyway, this disc needs to have a couple of arms mounted on it that come up and hold the cannon object. So we're going to model in the cannon object as a separate object for the minute. It's going to just be a cylinder. And basically, we're going to turn the back end into a circle. No big deal. Just put in a cut, and grab it, shrink it down. Put in a cut, and then move it. Put in a cut, and then move it. Yeah, something like that, right? And then we're going to want to put in some handles coming up to grip the sides, which means we are going to want to do the same flattening here, just because it'll look better if it's all, kind of the same system. Just put in a little bit of a circle cut there so that we don't accidentally screw things up. And then we will just select this face and the same on the other side. I guess we should just mirror it. And then we can select them on just one side, scale X0, and get a nice flat surface like that. And then that's where the arms are going to come up and grab it. So because of that, we're going to want to actually put the arms in. Let's go ahead and punch this up just a touch. Ooh. There we go. I don't like it. All right, that's better. So now that we want the arms, we're going to add in some cubes. This beautiful cube is going to be one of our arms. Oh, my mic is slipping out of position. Let's just make some loud noises while we readjust that. So you can see that this is quite wide. So you might think that it's too wide for us to do what we're trying to do, but it's not. We'll just have an outward bend in our mesh, so it's not a big deal. Just put this up here, where it's roughly the right spot, and then we'll adjust the rest. All right, let's cut, and then cut, and then this guy. And then on the bottom, we're going to want to pull it in. Can't see it. There we are. But I think it would go best if we had a little bit of mass to it, and presumably did a little bit of work beveling it into something resembling a curve. Yeah, like that. And we'll just bring this up a touch, and then we'll bevel the heck out of it. Yeah, like that. But here's the thing, and I almost forgot, we actually need these to have handles on the top, because that's kind of how you do it manually. So we're going to have to just add in more mesh elements. I think what we'll do is we'll put them here. These will be where we get our handles out of. And if we extrude straight up like this, we can just bridge edge loops, and there's our handles. Easy as pie. So the idea is we're going to smash these open, and then we're going to have wires running down, and we'll be animating that part. But we don't yet have the plug set up correctly, so let's go ahead and, we'll put together a little bit of fun for this, because this isn't the final look that we're going for. So if we were to switch over to 3D cursor, that will allow us to still get circular distorts, but it won't because the 3D cursor is in a dumb spot, so we won't do that. Instead, what we're going to do is apply the mirror, and we'll delete the mirror again later. So once we've done that, we really want to have something that feels like a cannon made out of some kind of dish. So we're just going to create a dish structure within a dish structure just to get a good feel. Nope, don't want that. There we are. That's a little bit like what we want. And let's go ahead and add in a nice heaping helping of ray pointing stuff. We don't need it to be that complicated. Let's go ahead and, can we get a simpler thing? Let's go ahead and make it that didn't work. Try again without the sucking. There we are. Yeah, we'll get some good out of that. The idea here is that we'll have some glow. And the glow will go right there. So we're going to want to bevel that. But I don't know if we want to bevel the whole thing. I think we just want to bevel this part. Yeah, like that. Now we got some standout grid elements if we do that. That's better. Now at least they're on a part where nobody will be able to see them. So let's go ahead and add in some materials. We're going to need metal, and we're going to need glow. No, just metal, and then glow. And we're going to just want the glow to be this thing here. So just select it, come on down, make it glow. Maybe not. Why are you going that way? Here. Did you just do... I accidentally hit undo, which of course undoes the last 85 things you did. So we have to redo them all. There we are. And we also want to have a cutout here on the top, which gives us like a key shape. So that will be something we can use to create an inset. Like that, yeah. So if we bring these in, what we can do is we can extrude and then bring them down to here. And that should work. They're just a little too wide, so we'll scale them down. No, that's fine. Like this. So we've got a couple of issues with this, but it's no big deal. We'll just adjust things until they make sense. Well, let's clean up the shape a little bit. I know you can bevel verts, but for some reason it never quite takes when I try it. David Goder says that something is worse than 2.7, and I don't doubt that. Modeling feels so good in indie game dev. That's like the fun part. Sure, I can understand that. That's kind of why I'm thinking that my next project will just be a space adventure in Unreal, because you can just do a whole bunch of environment assets and call it a day, and you've got a space adventure. And Unreal actually draws things much better than Blender or than Unity, so it would be a good way to get started in Unreal. Just some basic stuff there. No, I don't like it. Let's fix it. Why is it bulgy? That's strange. Cut, cut. Sharpen. There. That's not bad, but I feel like this inset isn't tight enough. That's better. All right, so we're just kind of having some fun with it, trying to figure out what we want it to look like. Let's go ahead and model the backrest now. So this has a power cable coming into it, so we're going to need to have a power cable power cable plug. We'll just duplicate this, extrude it out, and shape it into a plug shape. Yeah, like that. And if we inset here, we can pull it in like this. We can mark this as boundaryless and inset it. And then I think we're going to need to move the bottom half down. There we are. There's our plug. And it might be a little bit too big. I think it's a little bit too big. We'll go ahead and set that up with 3D cursor and shrink it down. There we are. Oh, David Goder's looks like a spotlight, Monk of Time says. Yeah, it's a spotlight except for it's a laser beam, so it shoots energy. David Goder says Unreal came up with some rendering techniques and made polycount not a problem anymore. There are some big caveats on that, the biggest one being that it's not out until next year. But it's definitely a major feat. Unreal's new rendering techniques are certainly better than Unity's. And I've been haranguing Unity for years, saying that Unity shouldn't try and chase Unreal. You can't compete with Epic. They have all the money. And I mean that literally. They've taken all of the money that they could from every little kid and every gambling addict that they could find. And you can't compete with them. If they're going to go after realism, you have to go after something else. And if you go after realism, all you're going to end up doing is destabilizing your entire platform, like they did, and not catching up. It's really a disappointment. Unity, I mean. Unreal doing this is fine. So in order to get a really good feel, I think I'm going to just delete these. And then, yeah, like that. We can just bring in this shape here. We can actually bevel this. There's no reason not to. Yeah. And then we're going to need to have some materials. We're going to have metal. We're going to have black. Monk of Time says he's worried people won't optimize poly counts and game download sizes are going to balloon. So you're not going to have to worry about that. First off, meshes are never the significant portion of the data that you're getting. It's all audio and textures. Second off, the Unreal Engine rendering pipeline will actually optimize your meshes before building. So you'll get, in the final built product, you'll get an optimized mesh. Or it's not technically a mesh anymore, is it? An optimized asset that was at one point a mesh. So you're not going to have to worry about that. I mean, it's still going to balloon, but it's going to balloon because of other reasons. Is that even vaguely? No, it's bad. So that is a place we're going to have to hide. Let's go ahead and do it. Do it. Warzone is already 200 gigabytes. Yeah, I don't actually know what Warzone is, but if it's a modern shooter, that's like 90% textures. Well, maybe more like 70% textures. And then like 25% sound. At least that's how they always end up in my cases. The actual like meshes are really, really efficient because they have to be piped to the GPU constantly. So I haven't really encountered any games where the meshes were the expensive part. Maybe that'll change. We'll find out. And my 70-30 thing is mostly a joke. It's not quite that bad. I don't need to be called out on that by anybody watching this after the fact. All right, so we've got some issues. See that? We need to be careful not to accidentally create any crossover. That's fine. Do it like that. That's not too shabby. The only other thing we're really going to need here is a way to anchor it to the ground. And that's just going to be more handles, more hooks. So let's go ahead and get to creating some of that. We'll just create a cube and we'll turn it into a handle. And basically this is not a very good handle layout because it's got a 90-degree angle in it, which is not really what you want. So we're going to undo. And we're just going to do it the other way, which is shaboom, 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 extrude. There we are. That's got a nice loop. It's much easier for me to edit later, if we have to edit later. So just look at the median point, shrink it down, move it back. That's going to be fine like that. Let's go ahead and bevel the exterior so that we get a little bit. There we are. And then we'll just smooth it. And then we'll grab this, duplicate it, flip it, move it back. again. And there we go. We got 2 handles. Exciting. The other thing we need to do is merge them. Bow. So now that they're all in the same spot, we shouldn't have any more problems. It's more or less how we want it. We might tweak it later. This is basically fine. The only thing is we're going to want an intact version, just in case we need to use it later. So we're going to call this Intact Energy Relay. Don't need a hack. There we are. I'm going to duplicate it, move the other one off, and then this one will be called Energy Relay, or Busted Energy Relay. And basically the Busted Energy Relay is going to have some cuts made. We're going to have to make sure that we've already applied the mirror modifier, which means that we're going to have to unwrap everything first. There we go. And then we're going to apply the mirror modifier, and then we're just going to start to cut. What? Did I accidentally create some mirror modifier stuff that wasn't good? For some reason, I've got 2 limbs. I forgot to cut this. Oh, my bad. Stupid me. So we have to cut this. And you can see it doesn't cut cleanly. That's fine. Delete this. Bring this back. Looks good. All right, so let's unwrap it again. Boom. Then we'll move it off to the side, duplicate it, bring the other one over here. And that's it. Boof. I see that we've got some spammers, so we're going to just grab them and tell them to... Oh, well, it says I'm not allowed to fetch the account. Let's go ahead and report them for spam. They're spamming. Thank you for making this really annoying to do. That makes it super, super easy for us to spam, to block people for spamming and all that jazz. It would be really a shame if that was easy. It's good to make that sort of thing really, really challenging so that bots have a very, very easy time running roughshod over the entire experience. We're going to cut them at different spots. And then we're going to just model in some damage. Yeah, I'd say that roughly 90% of my YouTube comments are spammers. It's something I don't have any patience for. There needs to be just like a one-click way of reporting them and getting rid of them. There really should not be any sort of... It should not be a hassle for me to report someone that's hassling me. It's just that easy. It's nonsense. So in order to make this more organically cut, we're just going to add in some cuts like this. And then what we'll do is we'll just move them around. The only problem is we've got a lot of other crap in the way, so let's go ahead and hide the other crap so that we don't accidentally do anything. There we are. Now we can carve away without having any serious problems. So basically what we do is we turn on see-through mode, and that way when we do these cuts, we end up getting a lot of cuts that are on the other side of the mesh and are cutting through and being interesting, and that's kind of the point. And we don't have to be scared to twist it and move it around a little bit, because the whole point here is that this has been deformed by a bit of a hit. So that's what we're going to want to see. And then we'll just mark some of these as sharp. Yeah, like that. And then we'll just keep cutting until we are happy. Which is probably not something you want to say in public. Don't really like how this isn't cutting properly. I really wish that Blender's cut algorithm was a little bit less finicky. Well, whatever. And you can see it's not that difficult to add in a torn edge. It's harder to add in a ragged edge. Ragged edges are really quite challenging. But a torn edge like this isn't so bad. And we can also adjust this inner object. Unity might not end up rendering it, but we can adjust it. Look at, this shouldn't be flat. It should have a whole bunch of crisscrosses, but for some reason it didn't render. That's fine. It's on the outer side. Nobody's going to be able to see it. And then we're going to want to have one big crease. Like this. Yeah, that's not too shabby. It's the tough part is making sure that you don't accidentally end up with anything that looks too obviously like a mesh. So you can see this little crease here. I don't want that to look too triangular. It ends up looking fake. So I'm trying to, yeah, like that. That looks pretty much like how I want it to look. The only issue is I would really like to adjust this or this so that it's not square. And that's not a big deal. We'll just grab it and move it. There we are, like that. Now that's a very, very crisp line, which is fine. But this other side we're going to want to make sure isn't so crisp. I don't think we're going to actually fill the interior because we'll fill it last. Filling the interior apparently causes some issues. So let's get the crease, not the crease, but the shape we want out of this, which is just going to be something like that. Let's go with that. And then we will go ahead and start to work with it. So we're going to want to extrude in. And then we'll do some cutting and get this to feel a little bit more interesting. Trying to figure out where I want to cut to. Look at that. It didn't cut again. That's not a very useful cut, guys. Well, we got like a doubles thing going on over here. We'll just nudge that. He thinks there's a twisted polygon on the side. There's a couple of twisted polygons. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. As long as the final thing doesn't look twisted, it's fine. But if you see one that I don't see, feel free to let me know. I don't want to cut through the handle. I don't think it will, though. Yeah. We got some twisting, but that's okay. He says there's a pentagon that has a sharp edge. I mean, there's a lot of them that have a sharp edge. Are you talking about this one here? I actually marked that as sharp on purpose when I was early on in the process, and it didn't work out. Now, not all of these are going to be... I mean, there are probably better ways to do this. I just don't happen to know them, so we're going to just fake it a little bit. But you see that way that it goes chunk? I don't like that at all. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab that point. Oh, that's interesting. So let's connect the lines. There we go. I'm going to bevel it away. Yeah, more or less. Anyway, whether or not that's perfect, it's fine for now. And we'll go in and just repeat the process. I think I used to know a couple of ways to do this that were kind of more interesting. I just can't remember them. I mean, there were methods like shattering and stuff, but those always ended up feeling really forced. I mean that I think there were other methods of actually just cutting that weren't so cutting. I think they were faster to use and more interesting. I just don't happen to remember them at all. So we're just going to add in some cuts, and then we'll go in and shape them. Oh, that's what it was. There we are. Oh, it's off. Turn on. There we are. So if we were to move these around using a random fall off like this, we should be able to get a lot of very silly damage. Let's switch over to connect. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's put in some cuts that are a little bit more enthusiastic here. That's not where I want that cut to go. Try again. Oh, that's right. Starting to remember all of the tricks that I used to use. All of these tricks do require some cleanup at the end, so these aren't tricks you can use willy-nilly, but they make it worthwhile. So now that we have to clean these things up, there are a lot of different ways to clean them up. First thing you want to do is make sure that none of the points are too silly, like overlapping or causing mesh pop through. And if you see some points that are creating a crease that feels really artificial, bevel it away. And just continue to do that. You can also use a loop slide if you feel like doing that instead. But in this case, it needs to be beveled. Oh. Smooth. Oh, no. For some reason, that's causing us a lot of grief. I don't really know why that one point is being such an annoying point. So we're going to just... We'll hide it. We'll hide it by... there we are. Creating a crease like that. And then here, this one looks really fake, this crease. So we're going to want to make it so this crease is the dominant crease. And then that crease, we need this one to go away. There we are, that'll work. I don't like how this piece looks, so we're going to cut. Just to kind of soften the aggressively square nature of things. And this piece here, we're going to move this up and out, and then mark it. And this can be marked. Yeah, and this one is now not in great place here. It's I didn't want to do quite like that. Try again. Some of these are interior. I'm not too worried about them because the player probably won't see them. So let's go ahead and create that interior element. Cell fracture. Yeah, cell fracture is one of the other things that I've used in the past. I don't know whether it's just that I've never figured out how to use it perfectly or what, but it always feels a little bit strange and forced when I try and use it. Don't know why. So let's go ahead and see if we can beautify that face. He says this is more optimized than cell fracture. I'm not too worried about optimization. So, you know, what works, works. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with a subdivide, shabow. Then we're going to do some cuts. You can see we've got some very, very small elements. We'll expand those as we go. And then we're going to want to get some shearing effects. So we're going to grab some of these forward faces here. Bevel them. And then we're going to just go ahead and start to drag stuff around. Now we're going to get a lot of mesh pop through doing this because we're doing aggressively random motion. That's not too bad though. We'll fix it. Not too concerned. Yep, let's go ahead and start to clean it up. So if you see we've got some pop through here, we're going to want to fix that. We've got some really deep inset elements down there, that's fine. Basically, what we're trying to do is we're just trying to make sure that none of it feels artificial, none of it feels like a mesh, and therefore we're going to want to make sure that anytime the mesh overlaps with itself, we sort of take that out of the equation, because that's automatically going to feel very forced and artificial if the mesh overlaps too much. And there, we got a part where it needs to be smoothed. It didn't work. There we are. And then back here, this is nowhere near interesting enough, so we're going to just put in another cut. And we're going to want to make sure that this feels real, so we're going to cut a little bit around this corner. Get us a sharp edge there. And then this part, we're going to want to actually blunt. No, that's not working. I just don't like this edge, it's too smooth. That's fine. And this is on the inside, so we're not too concerned about it, but we don't want it to feel fake. Yeah, we got some problems right here. You see how far these faces are inset? Somehow this whole ring ended up so far inside, we're just going to delete it. And then here we've got some overlap. We're just going to want to fix that. You can see we've got some n-gons that might end up rendering incorrectly, so we're just going to do some cutting to try and clean those n-gons up a little bit. All right, so let's go ahead and build the major fault lines. There we go. Mark that as sharp. You can see we've got a little bit of exuberance out of that guy. We don't want that. We've already got this crease going here. I'd like to go ahead and add to that like this. Mark it sharp. That does mean that we've got an n-gon that we're going to have to split up. So let's go ahead and just select these two n-gons and tell it to break them up. Boom. And that way it'll be a little bit more manageable. Yeah, that's pretty much how I imagined it. And then the last one, we're going to want one coming up from the side. Yeah, more or less. Now we just got to fill. Boom. All right. So now we've got this cut open like that. We've already got a black material, so we're just going to mark the interior here as black. Yeah, David Goder says he often triangulates meshes to see how they'll look. Well, Unity triangulation works differently than Blender triangulation. I don't think I like Unity's nearly so much. So if I'm in a situation where it matters, I'll usually just triangulate it here in Blender. But that's only for non-animated objects, obviously. So animated objects I'm a little bit more careful with. All right, so we've got these. Now what we're going to want to do is create some cables. But here's the thing. This object is going to be a separate thing that is not connected to the rest. This is how it's going to look when you're done, more or less. But we're going to want to make sure that there are enough cables that we can just arrange it however we need to. So what we actually need to do is some basic surgery. Let's go ahead and connect here and connect here. And those connections are just so that we can hit Control L to get the whole shebang. See? So now what we can do is we can just pull it straight up. Like that. That should give us enough wire, if we put the wires down in there, that it should be okay for us to animate. So there's a lot of different ways to create wire. We're going to go ahead and create some simple splines. And then reticulate them. So here we've got a spline. If we wanted to, we could either skin it, or we could go down into the spline and start to mark it as having an extrusion. There we are. The only problem we've got is that the extrusion doesn't work. So we need an offset. Oh, what is it? It's depth, maybe? There we are, depth. Can never remember which one it is. We're going to bring that down to 0.1. And basically, we're just going to create a crap ton of these. Now we probably also want to have a taper one. Let's go ahead and try it. If we bring this down to 0, all right, well, let's actually give it a little bit, 0.1. If we get an extrude here, so you can see that what happens is we get like a sheet. And that means that we can get like a ribbon, and that's going to be another kind of power cable. So if we were to rotate that 90 degrees, there we are, we should be able to edit the curve to bring it in. I want to be on the inside. Like that. And we can select these other 4 here and just move them out a little bit. There we go. And that's going to be our first set, and then we'll just duplicate them. Duplicate. We'll scale Z -1, move them across here. Obviously, we're going to have to do some changes because they're not quite the same. On purpose, we made them different. And now these all need to be edited as well. I think we're going to go ahead and edit them, like actually change their curves, just so that they'll feel a little bit more organic. When we scale -1 them, they all got screwed up a little bit. It's not really how I wanted it, so we got to fix them up a little bit. There we are. That's more or less how I want it to look. So what we're going to do is we are going to just merge everything together. But in order to merge it together, we've got to convert all of these objects into meshes, because obviously they're no good to us as splines. The only problem is I don't remember how to do that. Object. I really hope I don't have to do it one by one. Can we just join them? What happens if we just join them? No. I might have to do it one by one. What a pain. I've forgotten how to convert these into actual objects. Let me go ahead and look that up. Blender curve to mesh. How to turn a curve into a mesh, 74 seconds. Let's go ahead and see if there's someone who's just given us a fucking button. Well, everybody over here is just right-clicking. Huh, there they are. Let's go ahead and try it again, this time with the right-clicking. Shabam. There we are. So in theory, these are all meshes now, and we can just join them in. Hooray! That was easy. David Goder has come up with the same answer. So there we have our cables. You might think they're a little too high poly. They are not. They are the right poly because they are going to be the animated part of this whole setup. Only issue I've got is that I've kind of screwed up just a touch. So we're just going to do a little bit of editing to try and bring these into line. Because I don't want them to be poking through the mesh in quite that way. There we are. So now we have to have an armature. So let's go ahead and build one. Armature. So our armature consists of, well, first off, this is not in quite the right spot. Let's go ahead and move it. There we are. Now we'll build the armature for it. So the armature consists of a base, and then we're going to have a couple of bones for the wires, and then we're going to have a head. And that's all. So we're just going to put that all in place. I'm trying to think about how I want the head to be arranged. I don't know. Do I want to have it looking forward? Yeah, I guess I do. I guess I do want to have it looking forward. So we're going to just... Where's the render? There we are. So just grab... There we are. And basically we're just going to put it in exact... There we go. You can see we're just a touch high, so we're just going to lower it down a little teeny bit. There we are. So that should be fine. The only issue here is that we're going to need to subdivide this. There we go. So now that it's set up, I think it's better if we were to move it into more close to the kind of curve we've got, just to make sure that it's, you know, not got a whole bunch of distortion. Like that. Now the other issue we've got here is that our bones are in the center, which means that as we move them, it's going to skew rather badly. And I'll show you that right now. So if we were to just go ahead and, oh, do I have like a mirror? No, I don't have any mirrors. And then we just parent this up with automatic weights. If we were to go into pose mode and arrange it, okay, well, it didn't friggin' do the automatic weights worth a damn. Let's go ahead and clean that up. Obviously, we're going to have to manually paint this anyway, but I don't want to manually paint it when it's just going to be garbage anyway. So what we'll do is we will do a envelope weights. Thank you. There we are. So when we got the envelope weights set up, we'll try that pose mode. Because I'm just trying to show you something. Fuck you. I can't show it to you. You have to trust me. These wires will get really bent out of shape if we've got just one central beam. So what we're going to actually need to do is create two beams off to the sides. And I forgot that because I wasn't thinking very clearly. So these three elements need to go. Boom. And what we need to do instead is just extrude off to the side like this and fork it. Boop. You can see how the forking didn't work, and that's because we're not set up with an X mirror option. So we're going to click there. Try it again. Boop. There we go. And then from there we can go on up. Shtaboop. 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 Now the issue with this is that these are not connected to the head bone in any way. So when we move the head bone, then these won't automatically keep up. That means we won't be doing any IK animations inside of Unity. We'll have to do everything here in Blender, which isn't necessarily too bad. It's just that it's a little bit of a shame. I don't think there's any way for me to connect the head bone to both of these arms, but it would make more sense for it to be connected to at least one arm. There. That way, maybe it'll get desynced, but at least it won't be terribly crappy. We can delete these bones, don't need them. And that should be all we need for our mesh. Let's go ahead and set this up with an armature attachment. We'll go ahead and use automatic weights and see whether or not that even vaguely worked. It won't. It'll be really, really terrible. At least the wires are behaving a little bit better this time. That's not too bad. All right, so let's go into paint mode. Is there a way to unwrap a bunch of objects from view and make a texture atlas out of them? That's what he's... in Blender, I have no idea. Sorry, it's not really something I know anything about. Oh, I've got to select this, then select this, then select this, then select this. There we are. And then we'll select this. There we go. And then basically we're going to want to set everything up here up as red. So just tool it. Turn on X mirroring, I guess. I don't know whether that X mirroring does anything. Yeah, there we are. Is that X mirroring? Yeah, okay, it's mirroring, so that's fine. So just paint it. I could use a big fat brush, but I'm not actually confident that this brush won't do random things, because Blender brushes are not the most reliable. Now, if you're not sure, you've got to make sure that you've got auto normalize turned on. I don't know why it tends to turn that off. It's very much bullshit, but auto normalize is something you're always going to want on. I haven't ever seen a situation where I didn't want auto normalize on. Okay, so now we're just going to hit this area here. So if we were to move this bone, you can see what happens. That is an easy way for us to do the painting, since we can see where the stretching is. And basically, this whole setup here needs to be attached to our body. Oh, really? It goes that far down? Huh? That's fine. Let's just fetch it all. What is it? Alt-Z? No. I don't remember how to get it to show. I don't want the wireframe. There's a way to get it to show the underlying mesh. I just don't remember how. Now we're using mirrored draw, but these are not actually mirrored objects, so this might be a little bit of a challenge. And what we're doing is we're just kind of pulling it up, but I don't want to accidentally catch too much wire. A little bit of wire is fine, but I don't want to catch very much. Let's turn off the front faces only, see if we can get a little bit of efficiency out of this. Come on. Why aren't you doing your thing? Why are you being annoying? Just go. Just go. Thank you. Jesus. Go. Go. I don't know why some of these are really aggressively refusing to go. There we are. All right, so we still got some shape left here. Just go ahead and do a little bit of scrubbing to try and clean it up a touch. It does not have to be perfect. And you can see this side didn't catch at all, so we have to do it again. Go, 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 go. Let's turn off the X mirror for now. Go, go, go. Thank you. Go, go. Now what I really should do is hide the wires, but I don't think that actually works. Let's try it. No, see, it doesn't work. There's some way to get the masking to work. I don't know what it is. I think you have to be in a specific view mode. I don't remember. Blender painting has always been just garbage. As you can tell by me repeatedly chanting go. Go. Normally I'd be like, well, you're not clicking on points, but these are clearly points. They are the points. They're just not being very well behaved. Yeah, I would really like it if you would go. I feel like that old Dragon Ball Z kit, you know, the video summarizing Dragon Ball Z, where they were just like, dodge. Oh, there, that seems fine. So we now have a couple of these working, and let's see whether or not this feels right when we move it. Yep. So you can see that what we've got here is a situation where it doesn't quite work out when we move it, but we need to be careful not to screw up too much here. So we're going to be lowering the weight. No, lowering the strength. Which one of these is which? Yeah, we're lowering the strength of it. There we are. So that when we go along here, we're not going to get too much redness. We don't want like 1,000,000 pounds of red here. And we can also see some of the places where it didn't quite catch when we were painting it, where it was too badly distorted for us to tell what was going on. Good enough. And then we're going to want to bring that strength back down and just kind of make sure that when we rotate the head, these things kind of sort of follow along. We don't want them to fall behind quite as badly as they seem to. Okay, so there's a couple of pieces that are not working there. We'll have to manually do them in a second. Let's just go ahead and keep pumping. For some reason, it's not painting. This isn't rocket science. I don't know. What about setting the weights to the data tab? I don't know how to do that. But I do know that this is not painting, like, at all. It's just not doing its job. Via Vertex Grout or something. If Vertex Grout is something in Blender, I've never heard of it. If you're talking about a third-party program, this should be something Blender can do. It's just refusing to do it. Look at this. It's not painting. Why was it willing to paint the right half of the mesh, but not the left half of the mesh? Questions for the ages. It's not a mirrored mesh, so that shouldn't be an issue. Is it because they're... I know what it is. It's because they were hidden. So they show here. They just don't paint at all. Okay. Well, that's worth knowing, I guess. I know that you can be painted. You are, in fact, points, and there are no more hidden points. So why are you being reluctant? It really thinks that that one is mapped at 1. It is not. That is not at 1. One of the biggest problems I've got is that we are mapping chunks of these so that they skew rather badly instead of being all the way around one of them. And this being in the way all the time is not a great assist. So, why can't I? Do I have to switch it back to being... Okay, hold on. All right, so here you can see... Oh, Vertex Groups. You know, I don't know. I don't really... Didn't really think about that. Could you do vertex groups that are set to being weight? Yeah, you can. You can. Okay, so hold on. Let's try that. That might be the easiest way to handle this, because what you can do with vertex groups is you can set them to be at a specific weight for a bone binding. And that means that we can just use these vertex groups like that. See? And then we can do the same thing for this guy, this guy, this guy. Why can't you go around? Just select the entire loop. Thank you. Oh, okay. So for some reason, this didn't work. Maybe that's why we were having such a hard time. Okay. So we're going to just come over here. Select, 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 select. And there we go. And that should select the tops of all of these. And if we come down here into Vertex Groups, boom, you can see we've got a head bone, which I stupidly didn't check the name of. It's called head. That's Jed. That's head. So now if we come back over here, we should be able to come down here, and here's the head bone, and we can assign them at a weight of 1. And then we can invert that. Let's not bother inverting it. Let's just try it and see whether or not it is vaguely reasonable. Yeah, so you can see that what we've got now is a very aggressive, crisp line. There's still some damage, but that's not too bad. The thing is that we're going to be using mostly these surrounding bones, which I can't select because I've set this to be view wire, even though it is very clearly no longer showing it as wire. It is only hitting wire selections. No? So it's no longer allowing me to click on bones or select bones in pose mode, which is really a fascinating choice on Blender's part. I definitely understand why they did that. It is the right thing to do. Why can't I select any bones? Did I break Blender? The fuck is going on? I can select them in edit mode. I can't select them in pose mode. Fuck it. Let's see how it feels in Unity. Yeah. Monk of Time is talking about how he sees tons and tons of glitches in Blender too. I would really like to recommend Blender more, but the fact of the matter is that Blender is just not quite there. It's still so full of bugs that I've never managed to get through an entire session without going, what the heck? And usually it's because I accidentally hit, Shift E instead of E or something like that, and it permanently breaks everything. And you're like, why? Why did this permanently break everything? And Blender's like, I don't know, and I'm not going to tell you, and I don't have any history. And if you hit undo, you'll undo something else. And it's like, come on, seriously? So here we've got our setup. We need to delete most of it. There we go. So we'll delete this little circle, but we're going to want to put our drone in there. There we are. Goodbye. And then here's our drone. And I think it's a little undersized. That's fine. We can scale it up as we like. Perfecto. Now, if we scale it up any more than that, we're going to have to adjust the wire in the back. Well, for now, we'll leave it. And then if we go over to the armature, presumably we won't have a hard time selecting the bones here in Unity. As I was trying to say, this is the bone we're going to be doing most of our work with. Now, I would like to be able to scale them, but I don't think I can. Not with the head attached. Maybe we'll detach the head so that I can scale these bones. Yeah, we're going to have to do that. David Goder says he was faster in 2.7. I can see that. I mean, it's not something that I'm going to say is common, but I can see that. So now that what we've got is, unfortunately for us, I had to detach everything because the new versions of Unity won't allow you to edit stuff that used to be a blend file unless you tell it to never allow it to ever update from the blend file again. So I've got to drop the drone stuff file back in again and re-edit it again. And obviously that means I've got to unpack it again and delete all this stuff again. Of course, one of the answers is here, we do not want drone stuff to import any of this stuff. There. So once again, scale it up a little bit, drop it down a little bit. All right, so now that the armature has been correctly set up with the detached head again, we should be able to move the head and then have the these tentacles come along. But now that I've detached the head, that's not what I wanted. Now that I've detached the head, I'm not actually sure that I want them to be bound to the head in quite the same way. We'll have to think about it. Either way, we can just move this into a position that is obviously broken, like that. And maybe have it hanging off the front a little bit. No, that's not it. There we are. And then we should be able to adjust these bones so that they are... Oh, well, you can see that I've got some painting left to do. That should be okay. Shouldn't require us to update here. And you can see that the elements here are not quite as undistorted as they might seem, so we're going to have to go back into Blender and fix that. Might as well do it now. So all you need to do is select this stuff, invert it. All of this down here needs to be bound to the same bone, this one. We'll save that. That's better. So now, when we go and arrange these bones, we should be able to get a little bit... What? What's going on? Why is this not updating? The energy relay mesh should be perfectly fine. It should have updated just fine. For some reason, it's not updating properly. So let's go into paint mode and see what the fuck is up. Yeah, so I don't know what it's thinking it's displaying here, but clearly this is all as red as it gets. There's no reason to think that any of this is wrong. Oh, the problem is it has to be unassigned from all of this. See, the auto-normalize doesn't work with this stuff. The auto-normalize only works with the rest of it. That's annoying. So we're going to have to go and select all of these groups. Oh my god. We're going to have to do it one by one? Fuck you. Well, I know a different way to do it next time. If we ever have to do this again, I will have another way, and it won't suck quite so much. There, better, thank you. So these bones can be adjusted and scaled without changing the nature of the head at all. But you can see the actual wires are not properly painted. And we're going to have to take that into account and change it a little bit, fix it a little bit. Which we'll do later. I won't worry about it right now. I'm really a little bit annoyed about how this ended up going. It shouldn't be this hard to figure out all this stuff. The only reason it's hard is because Blender doesn't allow for easy painting. So I think what we're going to have to do is completely detach the wires from the head. Even though I spent so much time trying to paint them red in just that one spot, at the end of the day, we're going to have to completely detach them. We don't really have any other choice. But to make matters worse, we won't be able to get that angle out of it, not without a lot of extra work. What I need to be able to do is come out like this, which means I think we're going to need another bone. Because that's just not enough flexibility for what we need. Yeah, that's not exactly what I want, but let's go ahead and start to apply some materials and see whether or not any of these materials make it feel a little bit better. We'll go with the World Metal Flat. And then we'll go with some of the holographic warning. And then we should have a black that is already ready to go. Now let's swim over there. Let's just take a look at it. Well, let's not open. I might fix up the wires off screen, or maybe I'll do it on Saturday. Either way, we're coming up towards the end of this stream. It was much longer than I had thought it would be. I'm just going to take a look and then stop. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them. Thanks for hanging around, and it was super nice to have people to gripe at and whine at while I was struggling with Blender. And you can see that what we have is a very clear, glowing, I guess it kind of looks like a dick, so maybe I'll change that. We got a glowing element here that you can see from quite a ways off, and that's kind of what I want. I'm just not sure that I want it to be pointed this direction. We'll have to think about it. Yeah, you know, I think that that layout works. I think that that idea works. It's just a matter of having to fix the wires up a little bit. Yeah, so the idea is that you'll take this handle and your buddy will take that other handle, and the two of you will point it at that. So that means that we're probably going to want to, well, I guess it's fine the way it is. All right, so thank you for your time, everybody, and I'll see you around.